Hey, everybody, welcome to Red Road Paranormal. My name is Kristina Bloom. I am a spiritual advisor and paranormal investigator with the Adirondack Park Paranormal Society. I am a descendant of Native Alaskans and currently living in Wisconsin. And this is my cohort in crime, Bobby Resnick Calkins.
How's everybody doing? I'm a paranormal investigator with a team out of Wisconsin here, Cryptids and Anomalies in the Paranormal Society, otherwise known as Wisconsin CAPS. I'm a spirit sensitive, and I'm also an enrolled member of the Stockbridge Muncie Tribe. And I'd like
Excellent.
to introduce to our new friend here, Hero. If you probably recognize him from the show Unearthing the Supernatural. How you doing today, Hero?
Doing pretty good. Glad to be part of the part of the podcast, and glad to finally meet you guys virtually in person, I guess is the word.
There we go,
Right?
virtually in person.
Yep.
I like that one. I'll remember that.
Yeah, yeah.
So, why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, Hero?
For sure. So I'm one of the founders of Unearthing the Supernatural. We're a Native American paranormal investigative group. We're kind of based out of the Southwest in Arizona, Four Corners region area. I am Navajo. And for those of you that are listening or watching that understand Navajo, just introduce myself and my clans. Shihin Nishle, do Bilagana Bashichin, Dasche, Edashiche, do Bilagana, Edashanale. And so I'm basically born for our Salt clan, and my dad is German and French descent, and my grandfather on my mom's side, my maternal grandfather, Red Streak people. And so originally from Zitlajin, which is Black Mesa area near the Four Corners region on the Navajo reservation. And myself, I'm a Hatafli, a medicine person, and was selected when I was at the age of 13 to partake in some trainings to be able to learn some old ceremonies, learn some the ceremonies that were dying off, honestly, that were ready to go extinct. And so there was a push to have some of the youth partake of what's called a guardianship program. And with that, we learned a lot of the ceremonies. And one of the ceremonies I picked up was dealing with ghosts and the supernatural, also dealing with the darker side of things like demons, kind of evil beings, evil spirits, and just really work to try to keep a balance and be that bridge. And we founded Unearthing the Supernatural almost 3 years ago now, and it was based off of let's go, we kind of take some of our ceremonies, go check out some haunted locations, and see if we can go interact with some spirits there.
Awesome.
Nice. Yeah. That was a lot of information. And thank you for sharing your native language too. I think that's so
Definitely.
important that,
Yes,
as we're putting this out into podcast land, anybody who gets onto YouTube or has a podcast thing that they can listen to is going to hear it. And I just think it's so important that people know that we are still here. We are still relevant. We are still, you know, we're thriving communities out there. And I love that we're bringing back a lot of the cultures.
Most
yeah,
definitely.
definitely. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's one thing. A lot of the cultures up here, there's not a lot of the language left. There is some, which, unfortunately, I don't know a lot of mine. I'm still learning, but it's a process. Along with the different parts of our culture that have been lost that we're trying to regain.
Definitely. It's a
Mhm.
struggle. I mean, we also have our struggles that we're trying to deal with, all the historical traumas that we've all been through, and then just trying to reestablish ourselves, reroot ourselves, get that language back, get those ceremonies back, and reestablish that connection with the world around us, honestly. And it's different. I mean, 100 plus years of innovation, of a lot of stuff that we indigenous people have gone through, all the way up to the technological innovations we have now. It's a different world, and the spirits, I believe, they're recognizing that we have our own struggles compared to how it was pre-colonialization, and they're learning to adapt to it as well. So it's a very interesting time for sure.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And I just remember when I started, because I wasn't raised Native, when I started exploring the cultures in my area, which is not actually where my heritage is from, but they were kind enough to let me in anyway. But I just remember a lot of the elders saying, and a lot of the medicine people saying, we don't communicate by email. You have to call us. And I'm like, well, by that thought, shouldn't we be using smoke signals? I mean, you know?
Right?
But yeah, I just thought it was interesting. Like email was their cutoff. They would not allow that because it wasn't traditional. And I'm like, well, phones weren't traditional either. So I'm not sure where we're going with this. But yeah, I agree though. I think the spirits are recognizing that, this is today's world and this is the way that we communicate. And I also feel like because we communicate this way, it's helping us to come together and grow stronger within our own cultures.
Definitely. And I think we're starting to finally be able to push ourselves as indigenous tribes to start accepting that technological change and those shifts. Um, I mean, like you just said, not too long ago, the indigenous tribes were like, no, just call us, or even better yet, just come see us, just knock on our doors. That's the more respectful and proper way to do it.
Right.
Yep.
But now I think now it's starting to transition to where we can, like how we are now, we're communicating even though we're thousands of miles apart. We're still able to communicate, we're still able to teach, to talk. And I think the elders are starting to finally see that and starting to find like, okay, what is it that this technology is giving us? What can we benefit from it as far as for establishing those teachings, rekindling the language programs, providing some means of kind of rekindling that fire and getting it going again to where we indigenous people can adapt and we can thrive instead of just being held back all the time.
Right.
Yep, exactly. I know one of the channels I watch on YouTube a lot is Navajo Teachings, because I love the fact that now it's coming mainstream. They're teaching these different ceremonies, they're talking about the different things from the past that otherwise would be lost.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Definitely, and that's kind of the premise of unearthing the supernatural is there it and it's a taboo of interacting with the other side, taboo of interacting with spirits and ghosts. In our tribe, you're not really supposed to do it unless you're a medicine person and have those songs and ceremonies and protections. But there is still that curiosity that's out there. Everyone, especially the young people, are very curious, and they ask the question why. Why is it this way? Why is this teaching this way? Why can't we do this? And it seems like when young people would ask that question here recently, the parents or even the grandparents would be just don't do it. That would be the answer because they may or may not know the full answer. Throughout the years of residential schools, of pretty much all the struggles that we've gone through, there has been that kind of taking care and shelling that, holding close that information. And it got to a point to where when you would ask about this stuff, it's like we don't talk about it only at certain times. Well, those certain times the kids are at school, they're not at home like how they traditionally were, and so those teachings weren't handed down. So they would just get the quick, you don't mess with that. Why? Just don't. And it's like, okay, there's a reason why. And that's why Unearthing Supernatural came about, is we want to be able to answer that reason why. These spirits, you have to approach them in a very particular way, a very respectful way. And then those bridges and connections. Here's the reason why we sing this song. Here's the reason why we move in this certain direction, why we use this herb. And to show that without having to put anyone really in danger besides ourselves, then you can kind of satisfy a little bit of that curiosity as well as entertain the youth. There's an entertainment factor in it of getting that adrenaline pumping, getting those endorphins going, like, ooh, what's going to happen next? And so it's an act of storytelling by showing. And so we indigenous people are amazing storytellers, and now we're evolving to tell those stories through modern means.
I love that. I
Yeah.
love that. Yeah, it's interesting. Can I just share a recent experience that I had with you guys?
Definitely.
Okay,
Sure.
so I was at a friend's rustic retreat center in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan a couple of weeks ago, and I think I shared this with Rez already, but they have a bunch of walking trails on the property, and 5 of us women went for a walk at night. And boy, when they called, there's a spot on the trails that they call the interdimensional highway, because that's the portal where interdimensional beings come and go. And so we were there and walked through that and then into a portal that they knew was there. There's a big crystal now placed in the middle of it and 2 benches. And it's a natural like a fairy ring, I guess, because the trees just naturally grow in a circle. And it was inside that circle that we were. And we were just talking, and all of a sudden, everybody went quiet. And this song came through me that I learned, oh God, 25, maybe 30 years ago. And it's an Anishinaabe song, Winde Aho. And it just started coming through me. And the first two verses came through. And then an elder channeled through me to the rest of the group. And then the other two verses came through. And we were just sitting there after that. And I channel a lot, so that didn't surprise me. That's just something, that's one of the things I do. But when we left, one of the ladies felt something when we were outside of that vortex, and she asked me if I had my EVP recorder or player on me, and I'm like, yeah, I have it on. So I turned it on, and I also took a picture, and there's like, you can barely see it, but you can see somebody who's very small standing next to her. And we were playing the EVP, and it was a small child's voice that sang the same song back to us on the EVP.
Wow.
Yeah. That was the most beautiful paranormal experience I think I've ever had. It was just
Nice.
amazing.
I
Yeah.
mean, that's just a testament to that connection of the indigenous spirits wanna have their voices heard, their emotions felt,
Yes.
and they miss communication. They miss being able to tell their stories as well.
Yeah.
Yep. That's one of the reasons why I go into every investigation. I tell them before I walk in, hey, I'm here to honor you. I want to give you a chance to tell your story. I'm here to interact with you. I come in peace and love and harmony with you. And I personally get a lot of the indigenous people that come to me during our investigations. I'll pick up on things that just out of nowhere that I'm like, oh, blah 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 this, and then the equipment's either going off or one of the mediums are giving the validation, like, yeah, that you're right on there.
Yep.
Definitely. And that's something that kind of like we found out. We used to have a member on our team before he passed away from his sickness. But he was non-indigenous, but he grew up with our family. He was basically adopted into the family. But the fact was that he wasn't indigenous by blood. And it was interesting that we would call him the spiritual punching bag when we go on investigations, because he would be the only one, always the one that gets touched, that gets hit, shoved by the darker things. They would always pick on him for some reason. And then he would ask, how come they're only picking on me? How come they're not picking on you guys? And it's like, the only thing I can think of is that our people long ago prayed about us, prayed for those protections, gave us those protections. And that's how we were raised. We've been through ceremony. We've been through a lot of things. Even though we're not wearing any of our sacred gear at the time, we still have those innate protections, those innate connections, just being indigenous by blood and understanding and recognizing that. And the spirits see that. They look upon you without even saying anything. They see who you are and kind of know where you come from. And they're like, well, these guys have some of those protections from long ago, ancient protections. But this guy here, let's beat him up.
Right? Let's pick on him a little bit. Yeah, I know, like, a lot of times when I go into places, it's been like this for years, that you can feel a dark sense or something like that, but they stay feet feet in front of me, rooms in front of me. They don't get anywhere close to me.
Same.
And I went to a spiritual advisor once, and I was talking to them, like, it's because you shine brighter than them. They see you as a threat. They cannot stand in your light, because you shine that bright. They know that you come with good medicine, and that if there was an opportunity to take them out, you could, to move them on. And that's why I've kind of always looked back. Well, it's got to be between the growing up in the church and then growing up, on the reservation. When I did get the chance to move up here, it all entwines, with our heritage.
Yes, it
Definitely,
does.
just like the old teachings, kind of from your area, from the Federation. I hate using the English terms, but from the Confederation that they had, and that sacred teachings that was passed down. As you think 7 generations ahead of you, and you pray for them, and just
Yep.
kind of how we're raised. Or even right now, when we do our ceremonies and we're asking for blessings, we not only pray for ourselves, we don't only pray for the people that are here on this earth right now, but we pray and set a precedence for the generations to come, that they be protected, that they be watched after. And you, with every prayer and every ceremony you do, you acknowledge that lineage that's going to come, and those ones that are going to come eventually, and you pray for them. And there's that level of protection that was set forth a long time ago. So definitely.
Yeah.
You just hit something directly in the head for me. You know, I brought this up. Hasn't been aired yet, but one of the reasons why I do what I do for the paranormal and for my team, and then now with this podcast, it is for the 7 generations to come. It is for our future, for our children, our grandchildren, great grandchildren, for all the youngins to come, and that we leave something behind to them that they can look up to, something they can learn from, and let
Yes.
them know that they can do whatever they want. They have the abilities. They let them know that we're back here thinking about them.
Definitely. And that's something I always wished was technology. If technology was back in the day, I would have loved to be able to communicate with my multi great grandfather's great great grandfather, and the type of person that they say he was, and the type of things he's seen, and the ceremonies that he ran. It would have been amazing to
Oh yeah.
have a video of him and how he described things. I mean, obviously we can try to communicate through spiritual means, and that's a whole nother level right there. But to also be able to have a modality of, what did he say right there? Rewind it and be
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, so that's what he meant. Slow it down and be able to manipulate this piece of media to where you can fully interpret, you can fully soak in those teachings.
Oh yeah, that would be amazing.
That would be.
I
Definitely.
wish we could. So that, with what we're doing now, our future generations are going to be able to do that.
Yeah.
You
I'm just
know,
gonna
and
say, listen to your mom, kids.
right?
Don't be little shits. Listen.
Uncles will whoop you.
Whoop ya, yeah.
Yeah, it's not the uncles you have to worry about, it's the aunties.
Uncles, aunties,
Yeah.
we're gonna come back and whoop you. I don't care if it's thousands of years down the line. I'm coming back and whoop you if you don't listen.
Yeah.
I could tell you
Yeah.
my ancestors have done that to me, so I'm just saying.
I've felt a few bops upside the head over the years. What the fuck did I do now?
Don't you be looking at her. Oh. Don't look at her like that.
Nice there.
Okay, so I have a question, and I don't know if it's inappropriate, I apologize. But just then, from both of you, I heard the same accent that I heard in Lac du Flambeau when I was in high school. Okay, I've heard it on the West Coast. I've heard it on the East Coast. What is that accent?
We all sound the same.
I know, isn't that weird?
I hate to say it. It gets worse. You get us in a group and we're all hanging out.
Dude,
Good luck, Kristina.
I was on the
That's
res,
pretty much
okay,
it.
in high school. I lived on the reservation, okay? I know what that sounds like. I also have a really good bullshit meter because of living on the reservation. And the storytellers, some of those stories are not true. They're just to wind people up.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no matter where you come from, we all have the same medicine, which is laughter. We all
Yeah.
have that same joking, the teasing, and
Yeah.
it's that laughter. It's those jokes. Sometimes they can be harsh, sometimes they can be stupid and silly, but it's that laughter that I think has come a long way to keep us who we are today and keep us still here.
And it's a
I
very
totally agree.
yeah, and it's a very distinct sense of humor.
Definitely.
Yeah. Some would say we're twisted. Some say we're just, mean. But it's
But
it's all in
it's
good
very
fun.
specific. I mean, like when people talk about like the English people, the Britons, how their sense of humor is dry. right? Like everybody just knows that. Well, Native America has its own brand of sense of humor. And
Yeah,
yeah,
Exactly.
it's very teasing kind of sense of humor.
yeah, we tease.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a teaching
Mhm.
to where when you become an uncle, when you become an auntie, you're bringing up the young ones, you tease them up enough to where they they look at themselves not in a negative aspect, but they learn to laugh at themselves, and they develop their own parental roles within their own spirits to where, man, uncle would be getting after me right now, or auntie would be really getting mad at me about this right now, and you hear those voices, you hear that teasing, and so when they're
Hmm.
not there, you're still around, you're still giving those teachings.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. I think a lot
Absolutely.
also helps them with giving them a little bit of thicker skin. You
Yep.
know, we toughen them up at the home on the home front, so when they step out there in the real world in the big cities, they're not, you know, I don't, I hate to compare, but like the little old farm boy that walks into the big city with the big eyes and, you know, gets hurt by the hustle and bustle. Well, a lot of our kids, when they go off, they're ready to go. They're, you know, they can take the rising of the everyday life. They can deal with the harshness of the cities a lot of times because we taught them at home to be strong, to be tough.
Able to go to as across, they're able to
Oh,
go to the Boston, they're able to go to the Bronx of New York, they're able to go to
well,
I
cutting
think we
out,
lost
losing you.
him. Yeah, I think we lost him here. Oh, well, until he comes back in.
Yeah,
There he
there
is.
he is.
We lost you
oh,
there,
the
buddy.
spirits are saying no, don't talk about that.
Don't give away
No,
all their secrets yet.
don't give away everything. No, but yeah, you can go anywhere. These kids, you can pretty much go us those native kids. They can go anywhere all across the world, and they'll be able to hang out in the slums, and they'll be able to hang out with the rich kids. So
Yeah,
that's the thing about teachings, pretty much.
yeah. You know,
Hmm.
I grew up in Chicago originally, so you know, I grew up some of the tough neighborhoods, hanging out with some of it. I've also sat and dined with freaking congressmen, you know, that, you know, they were aldermans back then, but they worked their way up. And I've done work with some of the pro sports teams, people's cars and stuff like that. So yeah, I've all walks of life, you know, and if I don't think if, you know, we had the teachings we had at home, if we didn't have that, you wouldn't be able to hang like we do.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, that's interesting because as a younger child, I didn't have that. We didn't move to the Lac du Flambeau area until I was 12. So as a younger child, I mean, not that my environment was safe by any means, but it wasn't the same thing that you guys are talking about. It wasn't the same kind of teachings. And I think he froze again. Either that or he's just got that stare going on. um, I don't like dead air, so we're just going to keep
Yeah,
talking, and
right.
he'll find his way back in again. So, what is what is specific about, say, Native American hauntings as opposed to other hauntings, other than the
Well,
fact that they're Native American?
right. You know, it all depends on who's looking at it actually and who's perceiving it an issue, you know, with a quote unquote a bad Native American haunting.
Mm-hmm.
But I know like I have a friend of mine who's a demonologist and he'll go fight demons, but the minute freaking it's anything to do with Native American, he cuts tail and I'm out of here. This ain't my wheelhouse. And he'll straight up tell you, he goes, well, they're downright mean. And I'm like, well, not really. You just got to know how to approach them.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, I think that's probably true, but I don't. I also like the experience I shared earlier with that young child singing back to us in their own language. That certainly
Right?
wasn't mean,
No, it's
you
not.
know.
You know, it's just it's how it's perceived and
Hmm.
what you're there for.
Right.
I've sat and heard ceremonial drums in the background coming from a distance, and there's no reason for it to be there.
Oh, I
I,
have
I've
too.
had
Yeah.
I've heard the jingles of the bells,
Yeah.
so
The drumming and the singing. And I know when I was doing drum circles on Elkai Beach in Seattle, we would hear the singing. Even though not one person in the circle was singing, we were all drumming, but nobody was singing, and we would hear the singing coming through. Is he not able to get back on?
I don't know. I'm sending a message now to find out.
Okay. Um,
So,
hmm.
what if his Wi-Fi went out there? Or
That could be. Well, we can just wind up the show and then bring him back on at another time when his Wi-Fi is working better.
he checked my message. I'm waiting to see if there's a
Okay.
response here. Yeah.
Oh, there he is. We're going to bring him back in.
All right.
Technology is amazing when it works.
All right, so we're gonna try to give that a shot. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. So I just went. I think they're working on the internet. Yeah, the internet's completely out. I'm seeing the thing right there. So we're gonna go ahead and work on that. Let me see real quick. Sorry about this, guys.
Oh, no
Not a
worries.
problem.
Technology is amazing when it works.
Right? But when it doesn't.
Yes. When it doesn't, that's when we get frustrated.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. So I'm just put this other camera off real quick. Give us some room.
Okay.
All right, but you guys can hear me all right?
Yep.
Yep.
All right, sweet. Okay, we can continue. Where did we leave off?
Right. Well, we had two things happen while we were trying to talk about the topic. So let's move to something else before this goes out again.
Yes.
Right.
Make sure isn't the ancestors telling us to change topic?
Talk about something else, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, here's one for you. Why don't you talk a little bit about skinwalkers down there?
Ah, yes. So called the name that we call him is Unigloshi, one that walks on all fours, and is able to shapeshift and change shape. So there's a lot of taboo with talking about it unless you know how to do the ceremonies to protect yourselves, how to keep pretty much those connective lines separated. But they are extremely dangerous, extremely powerful, kind of dark beings. And the origins of it stem from one of our most sacred ceremonies, when a medicine person is to get their dzej, or their bundle. They would go through the ceremony. It's kind of like the last ceremony they do before they become a full-fledged medicinal person. And on the fourth day, they'd say, after singing and doing the ceremony, on the fourth day, they would come out and they would see all these people that were out and about. And the young medicine person would don a coyote skin, and they would travel to all four sacred mountains. They would travel. Now our sacred mountains, you got two in Colorado, one in New Mexico, and one in Arizona. So very vast distances apart. And this is before there were cars. This is before there were even wagons. There's just, they would have to traverse these long distances. And so the medicine person would, they say he'd shapeshift into a coyote or another animal. And he would go to each of the mountains, all the sacred mountains, and he would sing a song. And they say that mountain, the tip of the mountain would bend over and would put some of its sacred sand in a hide, a buck hide, and that's what they'd make the sacred sand out of. The medicine bundles is what they'd make, and they'd come back all in one evening, and they would see that he would prove himself that he was able to do that. Now, with it being kind of like there's a lot of people looking, and they see this medicine person have gone through this long journey of many years of training and of learning and walking down the good path. There are some people that were enticed with, I want to be able to do that, but I don't want to walk that good path. I don't want to have to spend all these years to do it. And evil kind of heard this and would offer people sometimes like, well, why don't I can give this to you, but you have to sacrifice someone, a loved one, someone very close to you, and then I can give it to you. And some people took that deal. Some dark-minded people, they took that deal, and with that death, they are given that power with that sacrifice. And with it, they're able to shape shift and move like how the medicine people would of the day, and they were able to to kind of do really dark things. They're grave robbers, shapeshifters. They would pretty much steal the bodies from the cemeteries. They would steal them and actually cut up the bodies, grind the bones, make the meat, and they would make certain powders that would get people sick. And they would so they would blow it in people's face, that death, and the people would die within a few days. And so it's very real to us, the Navajo people. And you can ask any Navajo out there, and I'd say 99% of them have a story that kind of pertains to that a little bit, where they've encountered something, a supernatural force like that, that's either hurt their family or hurt them, or they've seen something or felt something. And so it's something that is taken very seriously. Even the Navajo Nation police out there, they take those calls very seriously. And there was actually a division of the Navajo Nation that was of Navajo Nation police and law enforcement that was established to be able to investigate those happenings. And they captured some wild things, and there's even documentaries on it of that particular ranger force that was put together. And unfortunately, nowadays it's gotten really misconstrued with popular media. They're saying, "Oh, there's a skinwalker over here," and it's a video of just an animal that's misshapen or had an injury of some kind, or they hear a mimicking voice in the forest. But a lot of those usually can be explained. Obviously, there's a traumatic thing that happened to an animal, or the mimicking voice could be a bird. There's a lot of birds and a lot of animals that can mimic voices and can mimic sounds, and they'll mimic that. Or it sounds like a mountain lion crying or chirping, things of that nature. And traditionally speaking, when dealing with those things, they are very rarely found outside of the four sacred mountains, the four corner region, and that has to deal with the deals that they made. There can be some instances of Unagloshis or skinwalkers outside of the sacred mountains, but there's usually very strong deals that were made. And if you pissed off a Navajo, maybe their family has some tie to it, but it's really just it's gotten misconstrued to where now everyone says the name, so it's almost not even worth it to say don't be saying their name, because it's been misused and changed up, just like the Wendigo, and that's been
Yeah.
changed up and how it originally was in the old stories of it. So unfortunately, I call it being whitewashed.
Yeah.
So
Right.
kind
Yeah.
of what happened to it. But to us, Diné Navajo people, they are very real. They are very dangerous, and something that has to be not respected in the sense that you should salute them, but in respect in the sense that you respect their power and you respect what they can do to someone who doesn't know what they're doing.
Okay. Now, not only being a paranormal investigator myself, but also a cryptid investigator. I don't know if you're familiar with dogmen that we
Yeah.
have up in like Michigan and the Beast of Bray Road here in Wisconsin. I was out on a site down in Elkhorn, down where right around the corner from Bray Road, literally like backs up to the road. The property that I was at was, and we're looking for something else, doing some other things that are on this property. And I got a connection thinking, well, what if all these dogmen and this beast sightings, what if they were skinwalker related all the way up here from the teachings of all this being native land at one point in time. Could that be a connection there? You know, is he not a cryptid? Is he really just, you know, part of our culture, our supernatural? You got any
Now,
thoughts on that?
yeah, so indigenous people have always, especially the high medicine people, shapeshifting is not just Navajo, it's not just one tribe. When it comes to being able to turn into some form of nature, there's teachings behind that. There's aspects to that, and there's also stories of curses of pretty much dark people that lay curses on families. I know up towards that way, the Beast of Bray Road area, there's some indigenous teachings of it possibly being someone who, a family who was cursed, that was kind of forced to shapeshift into that, and they kind of lose their mentality. They become beast-like in their nature, and they also get endowed with spiritual, I don't want to say gifts, but spiritual enhancements that allow them to shapeshift in that. So it could be good or bad. It depends on the person that's doing it. And I know a lot of modern day people, especially in the spiritualism movement in the early 1900s, they started dabbling in things they really shouldn't be, as far as for like seances that kind of go awry, or they try messing with spiritual things. There's a whole supernatural aspect to it. But there are stories of just straight Atonshke, Pinch, Chafkansi, which is the people that were already animals, but they can change their form. So they were animal first, and they can change their form to human. And so there's stories of that as well. So it would really just be taking it case by case, seeing the location in the area, and really just kind of diving deep into the investigation to find out exactly what it is. Because the Beast of Railroad is definitely something that's fascinating and interesting, and it happens to be isolated to a very particular location. And so there very well may be a curse or a family that has learned that particular practice, or it could be a spiritual being that has kind of like manifested or transformed into our world when it needs to. Like dealing with the other cryptids, like Bigfoot, they're able to hide themselves when they want to, and they're able to traverse different worlds, different realms of the physical and spiritual realms, and kind of go back and forth. And so there's a lot of stories dealing with that. So it could be a number of
Yep.
things.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah.
And the Beast of Bray Road is not restricted to Bray Road either. I mean, it's been seen all over Wisconsin and northern Illinois. So it
Yeah.
hasn't been just in that one area. I think it got that name because that's where it was first reported.
Yeah.
Was
I
on
think
Bray Road. Yeah.
believe it was Linda Godfrey that kind of coined it the Beast of Bray Road
Yeah.
with a lot of her stuff. That's her
Mhm.
research. But yeah, because they get the same reportings up in lower upper Michigan, UP. They got them over in other parts of Michigan. And this whole general area, you know, there's been
Right.
reports.
The whole Great Lakes area.
Yeah.
Definitely. And that's something to think about, is the lore and the attributes of each of the cryptids. So when we're dealing with skinwalkers, those are actual people. Um, and you think of the more modern terms, they're people that shapeshift into a beast to help them perform their dark ways and hurt people. Whereas it seems like more of the case of the Beast of Bray Road, it's more animalistic, it's more
Mhm.
curious, not necessarily going to people's homes and trying to witch them per se. There
Right.
are
Right.
cases of it, you know, like being around homesteads, but it seems more natural than malicious of intent.
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. So I'm going to ask a really non-native question because I know that a lot of different people are going to be listening to this podcast. What's the difference between a skinwalker and a Wendigo?
Oh, night and day almost.
Yeah, but I'm
Night,
telling you, a lot of people don't
yeah,
know the difference. So
definitely,
that's why
yeah.
I'm
So,
asking you.
so I told you a little bit about the Skinwalker, how they got their gift, and the dark intents that they have, to how they use that supernatural power. Wendigo, on the other hand, is more so of a curse rather than looking to seek power. Traditionally speaking, I've heard several different versions of it. And the best way to learn about them specifically is to go to the actual tribe where that particular story belongs to. And I just hope to do a little bit of justice. But from what I've heard from some of my friends, some relatives from that area, is the Wendigo Alkejon Sehaki. It's a curse placed for breaking a natural law. So some of the natural laws we indigenous people have, especially, have to abide by, and one of them is don't resort to cannibalism. Don't resort to eating of your fellow brother or sister. Don't resort to eating of the flesh. And up there, the winters can be harsh. They can be very unforgiving to people. And sometimes some people they're not lucky when it comes to the hunt, or they didn't prepare well, or some circumstance happens that forces them to, in order to survive, they look upon they look upon another human and have those thoughts of eating just to survive, that survival instinct. And that teaching of that is when they partake of that human flesh, that human consumption there, they get an ice cold heart. They get that beast like just lust for blood, that lust for that taste, and it turns them into something that's not good. And so when it comes to the Wendigo, they'll get so hungry and ravenous, that starvation spirit, that they actually will eat their own flesh. They'll start eating on themselves. That's why the ancient stories have them have no lips, and they have bites, pieces of them missing, because they're just hungry for that blood, hungry for that flesh. And it's a sickness that takes over the spirit, that takes over the mind. And it also gives them that dark power, because you broke that natural law. You are no longer part of the natural flow of things. And there's certain beings and spirits that'll prey upon that. So it's a very unfortunate circumstance if someone were to be cursed by that Wendigo lust, that Wendigo psychosis, kind of. And there have been studies of that actually have come out of university, of people who have taken kind of eat the flesh, and there's a certain mental psychosis that happens to them, and they did call it the Wendigo sickness. And
Okay.
it's not something that actually has horns and like not really claws or anything like that, that has kind of been portrayed out to be. It's more of a teaching to prevent you from breaking a natural law of consuming the flesh of your fellow human being.
Okay. I had not heard that before. I had heard the part about them like not having lips or, missing pieces, but I hadn't heard it explained before. So thank you.
Definitely.
Thank you.
Yeah, I've heard bits and pieces over the years, but never put together like that. Awesome delivery, my friend.
Yes.
Definitely. It's always good to try to learn and know. Like I said, there's old stories to it. There's old teachings behind, like, either how to get rid of it, how to push against it, protect against it. Because it is a spirit, just like how us indigenous people, at least the Navajo people, we call them Glani spirits. Basically, a spirit that has died by drinking too much, a person who is drinking too much alcohol, and they pass away, unfortunately, but that spirit of that alcohol still consumes them, and it looks for other people to infect and get them sick and put them on that chemical dependency. And so it's best to talk to those people, the tribes from up there, that have the old stories of how to either fix it or protect against it.
Wow. You are a wealth of knowledge. I was told you were going to be a wealth of knowledge, but I'm really
Much as I
impressed.
Much as I can.
So,
Yeah,
go ahead, Rez.
I was just say we're definitely have to bring him back another time, and pick his brain as much as we can to help our future generations, so they have the knowledge there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely would love to
Absolutely.
be part of this again. And I love teaching what I can, and I'm always learning. I'm not going to say that I know a lot of everything, because I know a lot of nothing.
Right.
It's pretty much trying to do my best to keep learning, and I'm going to keep learning if even beyond into my old age and beyond my time on this earth. We're beings that keep learning and are going to continue to do my best to pass on those teachings and maybe help someone who might be going through a situation.
That's incredible. Before we
Yeah.
go, can you just tell us about an experience that you have had on a paranormal investigation? Just maybe a fun one. I don't know.
A fun one. Let's see. There's so many experiences to draw from. I would say one of the most intense and times that's unforgettable for me would have to be at the Gila County Jail over near Globe, Arizona. And so that particular investigation, we went to investigate this old jail, and there's stories of a man who murdered some young women, and he was placed in that jail, and he was awaiting trial. But people kind of took justice in their own hands, kind of like Old West justice. And he was shot and killed in the jail by an unknown assailant from another building, kind of through the jail cell doors. And they say his spirit was there. And there's it's a jail, so there's a lot of darkness, a lot of spirits that were there that were just either lost or in prisons. A lot of things was going on. But when we went to investigate there, we not only tapped into the normal, what you'd find in a jail, kind of the darkness that's there, but it seemed like we stumbled upon an actual, one of the first times on camera really dealt with a demonic entity that was named, that figured us out. And so a cool technique that we utilize, that we still they're trying to teach other teams to utilize, is, you see my name as Hero. You see my regular name now. It's David Avery on there. But when we go on investigation, we use our stage names or our gifted names, and so we'll only use those names. So when you say Hero, or you'll have Sean Clan, Pataya, Bezpa, or Kolta, we use those names, and then we never mention our real names, and that's for multiple reasons. One, if a spirit were to know our real names, that tells you a little bit about their power. It tells you a little bit about their insight, how they're able to look at you. And they say, oh, you're so and so, so beyond just our stage names. And then there's a whole nother level of our spiritual names that are given, our names are very important to us indigenous people, to where there are sacred names we don't say unless we're in ceremony. And if a spirit were to call you by your sacred name and call you out on that, that's a whole high level being that tells you kind of the hierarchy of knowledge and insight that being has. And it says only the high beings, whether good or bad, only those high beings can know that name. And so they not only called out our spiritual names of that highest level, they also were able to manipulate their voice mid-sentence. They're able to call upon, use that ghost ceremony. They really made themselves known and tried scaring us off, so much so that they pushed Pataya, shoved him up against a file cabinet. And he was the one we were talking about. That was the punching bag. He's not native by blood, but he was shooken up pretty intensely by that. We got out of the building, calmed him down, and an amazing thing about everyone on my team, but him especially, he got calmed down and says, "I'm going back up there and I'm going to confront that thing myself." I said, "All right," and he says, "Just I'm not going to back down from it." He went up there. It's the third story where he got shoved, and I was kind of in between the second and third story on the stairs. And I told him, "I'll be right here. I'll let you take care of business right there, but I'll be right here if it gets too much." He says, "Okay." So we put a camera right there, just kind of like a stationary camera. Didn't know what we were going to capture. And he started talking to me. He's like, "Why'd you shove me? What's going on? Why are you doing this?" And asking questions. And it started manifesting. It started coming to fruition in front of him like a dark shadow. And it was coming up at him. And it kind of like had him step back. He's like, "It's coming up at me, Hero." And I said, "All right." So I ran up there. My mental state was, you don't touch my friend. No matter what you are, without permission, you're not touching my friend. You're not going to hurt him. You're not going to shove him and toss him anywhere. And I said, how dare you do that to my warrior, my pupils? And so I was cussing up a storm on video. I didn't care if it was on camera or what. I was cussing up a storm. And I remember climbing up those steps, turning the corner into that doorway and just seeing a huge shadow in front of me. And I just remember going up to it, and I felt a cold, sharp metal in my hands. I went underneath it, kind of where I thought its chest area was, and I shoved it. It was real heavy, but I just like footballed it pretty much like a football linebacker. Just went underneath its shoulder pads and just shoved it. And I went inside the room, and I was pissed. I'm like, you do not hurt my friend. You don't touch my friend. Cussing up a storm. And what was amazing is we caught on our spirit box that was running at the time, oh my God. And you heard it say, like, in exasperation, oh my God, after you hear it crashing into things. I didn't know we had it on camera, but looking back at the review, we caught me shoving it, and we caught it crashing into the things in the room, falling down, crashing and breaking things. And we heard the, oh my God. And after that, I said, all right, we're going to do the ceremony now. We found out that this particular demonic entity was holding these innocent beings, kind of like a spiritual slave trade. And so I said, you're not going to hurt these beings anymore. It wasn't my place to go and attack or get rid of this demon because it was still a jail. It wasn't my home. It wasn't anyone's home. It's just a jail, an old relic. So I said, I'm going to help these beings here now, but I cannot, natural law wise, step in to dispatch you because the owner doesn't want that. So basically, the ceremony and thought process behind that was to push the darkness against the wall, take off the chains of the innocent spirit, let them go, and then us step back. Kind of the old ways like that. I said, I don't care what you do after we leave, but these beings are asking for help, and we're going to help them right here, these ones that we can. And so that moment right there is really kind of what helped blow us up on social media wise. I guess it's the first time that anyone's captured on camera someone shoving a demon. I mean, there's been exorcisms and things like that, or people being shoved by ghosts, but it's never been the other way around. And
I have to agree. I've never seen that before.
Yeah, so that video, that's what really, there's a lot of people all over the world that saw that video, and they're freaking out about it, and it's pretty intense. And I never intended it to be like that. It was just us interacting with spirits, and I was pissed off. Don't touch my friend. Don't touch my friend like that. So that moment, that whole night was very intense, and it was a very wild experience for all of us, for sure.
Thank you for sharing that. Thank you.
Definitely.
All
So I
right.
think I might have seen that video actually, I believe. As you described, I can't remember it.
I'm going to go look for it.
You hear me cussing up a storm. I apologize ahead of time. I'm pissed.
I don't know any of those words. I don't know what you're talking about. Okay. So well, I want to thank you so much for your time, and the technical issues were kind of interesting because as soon as we change the topic, no more tech issues. So
yeah. Get to the ghost. Come on, I want to talk about it. That's probably what they're saying. How about us? Stop talking about your nativeness.
All right, Rez, any last words?
No, I just want to say thank you for coming on, and I look forward to our friendship here, and that hopefully next time I go out in your neck of the Turtle Island there, that maybe we can get in the lodge together, or kick back and have some good times, my friend.
Sounds good. I look forward to traveling that way too, and meeting you guys in person. So we'll look forward to a lot more interaction, and I'm always here, guys. Just a call away.
Awesome. Thanks, Hero. It was a pleasure meeting you.
Pleasure meeting you all too. Take care. Have a great night.
All right. You too. Bye-bye.